All right, we're gonna do our virtual classroom tonight. Let's see if I can get any better with this. I'm gonna try to. In my home tonight, and I'm working with Portia. Might get a little bit loud. I've got the other guys gated up in the other room. Otherwise it would just be mayhem when you live with 5 golden retrievers. So we did a number of things, started on a number of things last night. One of the things we started with were stretches. We went from stretches into some basic stays with sits, and then also switching from position for your stays from a sit to a stand. Tonight, I want to give you a couple more stretches that you can work on, some things for strength building, so we're going to work on that. And then in addition, I'm going to find something for Savvy to do so she doesn't drive us crazy. We're going to work on place behavior. What is a place behavior? And some beginning pieces of teaching that. Sav, that's enough, thank you. And then the last thing I want to work on is two paws up on something. I use paws up for a lot of things, but the biggest thing that I use it consistently for is getting into my truck. So it's nice to have an option. I can ask my dog to put their feet up, and they'll put 2 paws up. I can lift them in that way. It's also, if I want to work on eyes or ears, I need them to stand up for me. It's a nice stabilizing position. So we'll work on paws up too. Right, kiddo? All right, but first, I want to review the stretches we did yesterday. The first one we worked on was just our dog in a stand, and we're going to bring nose to hip. Easy. Good. And then have them hold that. 1, 2, 3, and then release. All right. And we're going to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to go opposite direction. I'm just going to shift her head this way. Easy. And then bring nose to hip. Good. And then have her hold that for 3. Good. Excellent. All right. So you did those yesterday. You also did cat pose. We're going to shift gears and work on some basic stabilization. I'm going to show this working on the floor with her. And you're going to do this one leg at a time. The key to it, see if I can get her set. Let me have this foot. Is I want this part of the leg, from the wrist to the elbow, I want that to be parallel to the floor. And you're just going to hold that for a count of 5. All right? So you're going to lift that up. What you're looking for is for her to balance on 3 feet for a count of 5. Stand. Portia, stand. Good girl. And then I'm going to shift and go to the other front foot. Good, and then I'm going to go to the back feet. And so I'm going to lift, and on the back foot, do it on your side here. I'm holding her right here on the opposite side of the hock, the knee here, and from the knee to the hock, you want to be parallel to the ground. All right, so you're just going to hold that. You're looking for her to balance her weight on the remaining 3 feet and not be putting weight on your finger. Okay, good girl. And then I'm going to do the last one. It's all right. Good girl. All right, so you have them balancing on one leg at a time. They are on the floor, so you have all 4 feet on the floor, which is awesome. Hey, baby girl. Can you lie down, please? Good. Once they're able to do that, and you want to do 3, once again, we'll do 3 sets to the count of 5 on each of those. Then there are a number of ways you can increase difficulty on working on that simple strength exercise. One, you could still work a single leg at a time, and you could work that single leg at a time on something that is not as stable. So you could use like a yoga pad or a balance pad. You could use a cushion from your couch or an outside cushion, something that makes it a little unstable, and then do that same exercise, but it would increase the difficulty. So that's another great way to work on some strength. Once they get good at that, you can elevate the rear by putting their back feet up on a stair, or you could elevate the front. And then once they're good and you're seeing some improvement in their strength, come here, honey. Come around. Good. Portia, stand. Stay. So here, then you can start to work on lifting opposite. So I've got her front close to me, and then I'm going to lift the back leg. And now we're going to work on stabilizing on 2 feet. All right. 3, 4, 5. Nice work, baby girl. And then, of course, you would do the opposite. Stand. I'm going to lift this one, and then I'm going to have the back one toward me. Whoop. So she's struggling a little bit more with that one. Yeah, you don't get cookies for that. Stand. Thank you. Good. Stay. Lifting that front. Let me have the foot. Thank you. And then I'm going to lift this one, and we're going to hold that. I'm looking for her to balance on the two legs. Good. Nice job. Good girl. She says, this is boring. I want to do something. All right. So that's the next one for your general fitness, working on fit stuff. I got people coming in. This is awesome. So much fun. Woo! Yay! All right. You ready, girlfriend? Okay. Next thing. 2 paws up. So I'm going to use a feed bucket for this. These are just, you can get them at Tractor Supply. They're about $5 to $8. I use them for lots of things. But the first thing I'm going to do, now for her, okay, fortunately or unfortunately, she knows to put 2 feet up. But if she didn't, I could choose, if I wanted to, here, good girl, look at that, good. I could choose to lure her, so I could take that cookie, I could bring her up, good girl. And then if I reinforced her for holding that position, 2 feet up, that even if she walked off, pretty quickly you'll notice she'll come back up and she'll put those feet up. And the reason she's putting them up is because she's been reinforced for it in the past. Now we also play other games with 2 feet up on a bucket like this. You can work on rear end awareness. Oftentimes you'll see people will actually take the food and they'll move the dog this way, getting the dog to move that rear end. And that will teach them how to move their rear. And then they take and they bring it back this way. Good. So there, she's just following the lure. I actually like to work this where the dog learns to independently move that rear. And for this, usually I'll go to a clicker. You can also use a yes, but I'm looking for rear foot motion. So if I take this food and move it a little bit, it's okay, you can move. You gonna move for me or not? She's like, I'm not moving. Good girl. All right. Good. But if I start to move this, good girl, and I start to click those rear feet moving, she'll start to think about, go ahead. Good. Moving those rear feet. Go ahead. Good. Now, in order for me to get her to keep moving, did you lose it? She lost her cookie. All right, pause it. In order to get her to keep moving, I have to, that's it, good. I want to make sure that my point of, yeah, that's it, good girl. My point of reinforcement is actually here, so I'm supporting where her head is at. If I want her to do this independently, what you'll find is that start to get independence on this. Portia, pause that. Good. If they start to get independent motion on this. No. Back feet, please. You gotta love a thinking dog. There you go, get that, good girl. So I haven't done independent with her, so I'm playing a little bit with my position to see if I can get her to understand what I want her to do. Good girl, easy. Good. I'm marking the moment she chooses to move those rear feet. Okay? So you can play with that. Good girl. You can also, if your dog gets stuck and they're in a stay and they're here, I'm like, well, I'm in, my 2 paws are up here and I'm stuck here. Sad. Thank you. And I'm stuck here. I can't move. You can break. That's it. Good. I can move to help support that, but play with it. Another way sometimes I've seen people work on trying to get that rear to go independently is actually is to move the hand this way, and as the dog starts to move, then they pay toward the shoulder. So you're moving toward that shoulder, which gets the dog actually moving. Good. Excellent. So it's another way if you want to work. That's it. Good girl. Pause that. Good. Another way that you could work on that. But there are all ways you can isolate that rear feet. So to recap, first piece is, how do I get it? Paws up. Well, I can lure. Once the dog is there, I want to make being on that bucket actually worth their while. So you'll notice I'm just giving her some cookies for having those feet up. Break. And because the bucket is down, yes, and she's getting paid for that, she's going to want to go and put her feet back onto that, okay? So we're creating value for something that had no value before, simply by giving her food, reinforcing her for keeping her feet up there. If I want that motion, I can move myself, right? And if I did that, I could click for that rear foot motion. But you'll find that if you do it this way, what happens is the dog is dependent on you moving. And just for that extra level of challenge, for those of you who want to play with it, see if you can actually work on the dog understanding how to move that rear independently. Good. Where you get a lot of things, but see if you can play around until you actually get spin. Good. Independent motion in the back. All right. Break. Pause it. Good. Now you're getting frenzy. So now she's getting a little on the wild side. Down. Stay. All right. Just relax for a second. So play with your paws up. Lie down, please. Stay. Thank you. Just relax. You're fine. You can do a step stool. You can walk on a step stool. You can use a set of stairs. You can work on it. You can work with a bucket. You can work with a couple of books that you've stacked up. Start out with just that lure, getting those feet up. Good. Pay the dog for staying there. And you'll notice I'm not clicking for this. The dog is stationary. There's no reason for me to click. If I start to click, she's going to throw other behavior at me. The click ends the behavior and then can reset the dog. So for me, if I'm working static, pause up, pause up. Thank you. A static behavior, then I'm going to reinforce it. All right? Good girl. Break. Yay! So fun stuff. Off, down, stay. All right, so that's something that's a useful thing. It's useful for cleaning ears. It's useful for husbandry. It's useful for nails. It's useful for getting in and out of cars and trucks and things. So that pause up, and the dogs like it, and they get it really quickly. It's an easy thing to teach. The independent motion on the rear, you can play with. The challenge is getting the dog to actually learn to spin and then putting that on cue. That was the first time I really played that with her, and I think pretty quickly we could probably get her spinning and twirling. She likes to shape. That's fun for her. All right. For those of you in Manners program, I want to give you guys something to work on. Let me just grab a place for her. Stay. It's something I can use for a place. Push it down. Stay. Thank you. Stay. All right, so I just grabbed a throw rug from my house. I'm going to use this for it. In your classroom, oftentimes we're working. Portia, lie down, please. Stay. Thank you. You stay. We'll have your mat sitting next to your chair, and you'll work on reinforcing your dog for relaxing on that mat, which is really important because duration is part of what we want in a place behavior. Go to that location, lie down, and relax. We often use mats for it because we like to have it portable. I like to be able to have my dog put that mat down, especially with a young dog. Anywhere that I go, I carry one with me so I can work on relaxing new places, and it carries over and helps them to relax more quickly. It's also a really nice black and white behavior to help tell our dog what we want them to do. Oftentimes we wait, so often we wait, and we wait for the mistake or for the dog to do something that we're not happy with. And then we try to fix it afterward. And that's tough. That's a tough thing to do because what we really need to do is guide a little bit and tell them what we want to do when these things happen. And that's where place behavior can be really helpful. I'm going to give you an active exercise for it. I've got Portia. She's in a down right now, but she doesn't have to be. Break. Thank you. I'm going to put that place. I'm going to have a handful of goodies to make sure I'm prepared so that when she starts to offer me behavior, I can get in there and mark it. So for this one, I'm going to use a verbal for those of you who aren't using clickers. I've got a handful of cookies. I have my dog. I have my mat. And I'm going to put the mat down between the dog and me. And when she hits it, yes, I'm going to pay her for that. Good girl. And I'm putting the food on the ground, on the floor, and not in the dog's mouth. Because if I take the food to the dog's mouth, I'm probably going to get dogs following the food, all right? So I'm going to cue it down for her. I'm going to pay her right down in between her feet. And then I'm going to actually start to move. And as long as she holds that position, I'm going to toss food to her on the mat. All right? Good girl. So I don't want her to think that lying on this mat is dependent on where I am. If I always stay here and pay the dog from this position, as soon as I back up, the dog's going to follow me because they're thinking it's the position they are, the relative closeness, not the mat itself. Now I'm going to break her out of this. Break. Get it. Put her off of that mat. When she comes back in, yes, I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to reinforce it. Good girl. Nice job. You'll find if you use the same hand and foot, when you toss in and bowl, yes, you can bowl it right to the dog. Good girl. Good. Now I'm going to start to move. I'm still going to pay her for being on the mat. What I'm looking for is, does she change location? And you're going to find she might spin as I move. Good girl. Nice job. She didn't, which was nice. But she knows this behavior. Sorry. I don't have none of the dogs I have here. Break. Actually don't know the place behavior. She comes in, yes. So the yes marks her going onto that mat. Good for you. Good. That's it. Break. Good. Now sit, stay. Once your dog is relaxing and staying on that mat, then we can start to actually work on sending them to the mat, which is the other part that you begin to put together at the end of Manners 1, and then we start to solidify when we go into Manners 2. So I'm going to take my mat, stay, and I'm going to place my mat there. That was a great stay, honey. Portia. I know, you're being a shoemaker's child. You just hang out. Stay. So I'm going to put my mat over here. I'm going to step toward the mat, look at it, and I'm going to start to actually cue it. All right? When she hits it, the mark, the click, or the yes is going to happen when the dog actually hits the mat. All right? Okay, Portia. I'm almost out of cookies, and we're almost done with virtual classroom. Are you ready? All right. Place. Yes. Good. Good girl. Good. And once again, once she hits that mat, you'll notice I'm not staying static at this point. I'm actually doing some motion. I want her to know my motion has nothing to do with her reinforcement. Her reinforcement's for holding position. All right, break. Good. Sit. Stay. Stay this time. So I'm going to, again, move my mat. I'm going to start to add a physical cue to it and a verbal. Break. Place. Yes. Good girl. Good job. Good. Break. All right, good job, girlfriend. Okay, so just to recap what we had in today, we added an additional one of our fitness goals, which was 1 foot, each foot. So single foot, 3 repetitions, 5 seconds on those. Then we also talked about how we could elevate the rear or elevate the front to make the difficulty, increase the difficulty as the dog becomes more fit. Then we also talked about going to diagonals, front foot, rear foot of opposite sides, working on balancing on 2 feet. So that was our fitness for tonight. We also reviewed those nice stretches that we did the other night. And we went to teaching a new skill, which was 2 paws up on something. And then we talked about things you can do with that, how you can play with those things. And then we added with, that's beautiful, yes. Yes, that's very good that you put your back feet there. And then we did some review on our mat behavior, showing how to anchor that mat and help to keep our body position away from the dog's reinforcement, because sometimes that's where people run into trouble. They're always feeding in one position, and then they go to move away from the mat, and the dog follows them because they think it's being in front of them or to the side of them that's actually causing the reinforcement, and they're not putting the piece together that lying on the mat is what actually gets the reinforcement. And then once they get good at it, we can add a cue and start to send, and we can move that mat to new places. And that's when we get into Manners 2 and 3. We start to really work on stationing behaviors and targeting. This all kind of plays into that. Excuse my big face here as I take a quick look, see if there's any questions. Someone's having trouble with internet. Anyway, I think that gives you a series of things to do. Recapping from last night, we worked on sit stay. We added the stand. I'm going to revisit stays again for our live session tomorrow night. And that way you can start to work on the next position, which would be down. And we'll also see where you're at the stand position. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining me for the virtual classroom. And I hope to see everybody soon. Thanks so much.